So, Kristin and Marty, first of all, congratulations. This
Thank
was,
you.
yeah, this was a great achievement. Can you talk to me a little bit about how this story started?
Wow. Yeah, it's started quite some time ago. Really, at the start of the pandemic, we were committed to covering this unemployment problem that was plaguing our state. And it started just on doing one or two stories with a couple of people and helping them get their benefit money. And one story in particular we aired months into the pandemic. We were able to get thousands of dollars for two Wisconsinites who were unemployed and deservedly needed their benefit money. Once we did that story, we asked others to email us if they had been waiting months as well. And boy, those emails came in, and we still get them to this day. Even yesterday, we got a few with people needing help.
And I think, too, just like everyone else, our newsroom and our investigative unit was transitioning from into a pandemic workflow. And our assignment desk will tell you they've never received more calls about a single topic in their professional careers, and that people reaching out to the station on social media, calling in, emailing us, emailing anyone, including our front desk and sales staff at times,
Yep.
of just looking for help. So it was through this we were able to kind of create a database of people who reached out to us, people we reached out to, if we sent their information to the state, and if we were successful in helping them access their benefits. And as we were doing this, we were also trying to learn about this system. This was something neither of us really covered extensively before. So it was becoming familiar with the subject matter and becoming experts in it virtually in a matter of weeks.
Wow. And can you talk a little bit about what you're describing is a story that really connected with an audience? And I wonder if you can just talk about how important local news is, right? We've had a lot of bad, there just seems to be a continuous stream of, just difficulties, right, that local news outlets are facing all around the country. And I wonder, how do you feel about the role that your station is playing in the community?
I think it was really neat. We were committed at first to covering it, and sort of we thought, oh, we can help a few people, that'd be great. And then when it turned into this sort of act of public service, I think it really became something where we felt compassion for these people because we saw that this could have happened to us too. And I think that resonates with people. There were artists, teachers, business people, contractors, regular people who one day worked and got a paycheck, the next day had nothing. And to a point where you think, oh, you have a little bit in savings and stuff like that. It went like this. And these people said, I've reached out to the governor's office. I've reached out to lawmakers. We were the only ones sort of getting back to them in a timely fashion saying, okay, let's try to help you. What can we do? And I think the compassion element of journalism, as you mentioned, media quite often has been under the attack. And I feel like this just shows how important just the humanity and compassion that's really needed in journalism.
And I think, too, this particular issue, when you look at the year 2020 and the other issues that faced us, this issue affected everyone. It affected the single mother in the inner city of Milwaukee. Yep. It affected the rural residents out in our border counties and across the state, too. Our reach really went beyond our traditional viewership. We were helping people as far north as the Green Bay area. We were helping Madison residents and other central Wisconsin residents. And just the fact that it didn't matter where you were. This issue did not discriminate. It affected thousands of people of all stripes.
Like you said, different ages, different ethnicities, different jobs. And we would look at each other just, one of the guys sent me his resume and he's just like, I need help. And so when you start to read some of these emails and take some of the calls, you realize, wow, we're lucky right now that we are employed because it could have happened to us too.
And I think sometimes there is a sense or a belief that audiences are not interested in longer form or investigative or substantive stories, especially in local TV news. So did you ever feel that was something you had to overcome? How did you approach this complicated story that's that has a lot of kind of dry technical parts to it in a way that would make it resonate with audiences?
I think putting people first. You see that large Zoom call and putting the not just one face, but in the first case, 40 faces to this problem, and making it kind of forcing the viewer to see that this isn't one person's isolated problem. This is a problem affecting their neighbors, affecting people all over the state, and pairing that with it, kind of forcing the viewer to get to that why is this happening question on their own instead of us spoon feeding it to them, I think really helped resonate with that by telling everyone's story.
And Marty filed so many open records requests and compiled so much data. And the data oftentimes was so staggering and disturbing when you hear about millions of dollars where really thousands of people were overpaid. The DWD, the Department of Workforce Development, is saying, well, that's on them. That's their fault in many of these cases. So when you look at that, at one point it was $56 million, overpaid to Wisconsinites, and many of those people have to pay that money back. It's wow. So the data was needed, throughout all of these stories. And just like Marty said, to have a face to realize, hey, this is you, me, this is us. And I just think that just makes it so much more relatable.
The story went out on a lot of different platforms, right? So there were short clips that went out on social media. There were pieces in the different broadcasts. You also did Q&As with the anchors. So why was that important to have it, go beyond just kind of a 2-minute package in one program?
Well, I think, like you said, sometimes it can be difficult to capture viewers one way or another. I come from a print background. Long-form print journalism is kind of where I started my career and did a lot of my career. So there are people who do digest it that way. There are also people who digest it in this traditional 10 o'clock news way. Then there are people who digest it in the interview on Facebook Live or
yes.
the data visualizations we make for Facebook and our other social media platforms. So it was kind of piecemealing it so that everybody at least took a piece away from the story and while trying to reach as many people as possible.
Like Marty was saying, some people just get their news in different ways. And so we wanted to make sure that our audience, wherever they may be, could access this. And if you're not watching the 10 o'clock newscast or the morning show, then you're seeing this right on Facebook. You can join part of the conversations. And oftentimes people would email us message us via Facebook or social media, Instagram even. I've gotten some Twitter saying, I need help. I saw this online. Can you help me? We still get those to this day from our story from back in November. I saw this. I just came across this. People might be late to the game, but that's okay. Still to this day, they're asking for help, and it still lives on that, online platform, which is good.
And I think too, you take everyone, the stories have different meanings to everyone. So the people who are unemployed, it's that they're being heard by someone and there's someone trying to do something. For the viewer who's not unemployed and doesn't know anything about this problem, it's bringing it to light so that they understand this is an issue in their state. And then to the people who can make a difference, I think that's especially where long form journalism is important, because you're not just exposing something and walking away. You're showing through solid storytelling, solid fact checking, data gathering that this is an issue and this is where it comes from. While also trying to find solutions-based journalism as well. That's a lot of what we had done after the November piece was, where do we go from here?
Yes.
How does this, and trying to cut through the kind of press release rhetoric that was put out in a lot of this situation and getting to really the heart and the root cause of the issue.
I think what was really neat too about the way we did many of these long form stories is we offered hope and we offered tips for folks as well. And we gave them that opportunity to say, hey, reach out to us. We're still here. Learn about these. Here are some links. If this happened to you, here's what you can do. So that hope that was offered in the pieces too, we didn't just leave people with these sad stories. It's sort of, hey, let's check back in with some of them. We followed up with how they're doing months into the pandemic. What are some new issues? What are things that have gotten better? That's big on what I believe journalists should be doing, is continuing to follow a story, especially one this big.
And you mentioned solutions journalism and hope. So is that something that you are consciously bringing to your reporting, that mindset?
Yes. Yes, and we get reminded very often from our producer, our executive producer too. Hey, I read through this, and it's a team effort, and she'll remind us. Let's put more solutions within this story, or we'll talk about it and we'll have conversations. Hey, are we just leaving people here with this story of, oh, this is unfortunate that this happened? What are ways you can get out of this? We followed back too with people who had lost so much, and we asked them, how did you rebound from this? We have a whole series, titled The Rebound Stories here at our station, and our corporate company is dedicated to that, because I think people need that, a hope, especially now.
The other thing too is we stay in touch with the people we talked to back in November and beyond that, just where they're at, what other problems are they facing now? Is their credit score in the tank? Are they They're having to pay back family and it's taking a toll on relationships? The mental health issues of going through a situation like this, and just the overall, have they lost faith in their state government, or at least in the programs provided by it? Mm-hmm. And does that get rectified? If it does, how does it get rectified? And by continuing to tell their stories to this day.
Do you think that politicians have heard this message?
So right after our report, the governor issued his proposed budget, and it had quite a few different reforms to the unemployment system. One being allowing Social Security disability recipients to access benefits in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's only one of 2 states that doesn't allow for that, as well as a number of other laws aimed at knocking down some barriers to access to benefits. It's become kind of a political thing, as most things like this do. We are still hopeful that telling the stories of the people who reach out to us will have continued effect, and keeping it, I think, in the public's eye too. Now that the backlog is no longer hundreds of thousands of people, but we're still dealing with people are still dealing with the fallout, and so continuing to tell their stories and showing that the system remains to be broken even after this monumental collapse, I think will be paramount in making change in our state.
And how challenging was it to report on this story during the pandemic?
Obviously, these people and these folks out there could not meet us, and it wasn't safe at the time to meet them in person. So we just found a spot and made sure to mask up, and we had hand sanitizer sort of right there. And yes, it was different. And our photographer would talk about that. How are we going to really hear from these people without the visual medium when we're just sort of doing this Zoom and all on Zoom? And I think it comes down to just listening. We can all listen in different formats. Yeah, the video might not be as clear as the photojournalist would have liked, but you'd hear the audio, and you see the people, many of them becoming emotional on the call. And we would just ask simple questions like, how long have you been waiting? So many people were at that breaking point, and they felt comfortable enough to trust us and open up that way. So I think the challenge, yes, of course, not doing what we normally do. We drive out to a shoot, we do interviews, we come back to our station, and everything is sort of these certain steps. This was different. We wanted to show that there were so many people impacted by this. We invited anyone who emailed us. I can't even tell you how many emails I sent out and sent a Zoom link to, but I'm glad that so many responded and took the time out to do it. They felt like at least someone's listening to me, because they didn't feel that they were being heard.
And I think, too, when you talk about from a video standpoint, this is a quote-unquote video poor story. So we did something that I think has been, our viewers have been demanding of us, and we peeled the curtain back and made that the video. I think you see Kristin and I, we call it our post-game interview between her and I in the Faces of Unemployment piece, showing the number of emails we sent to the Department of Workforce Development, the agency that runs our unemployment system, showing just the conversations we have, Kristin on the phone with the agency trying to get answers, using our news gathering as the video for a story like this really kind of came through. And I think in the end, it kind of pushed it over the edge as far as something that was going to stick in the mind of our viewers.
Now, why did you make that choice?
We didn't have video.
Yeah, we didn't have video, but I thought it was important to see what it was like. What was this whole experience like? traditionally when we do TV broadcast stories, we have a voice track and we go to a soundbite and we button it up, and that's just that. This was just different. I thought, let's just mic ourselves up and talk about what it is we're going through. Because I was over here looking at all of these emails and I was just like, Marty, look at this, look at this one. Can I read this one to you? This is just how I would normally talk with him. And Tamat had the camera and started recording it. And we knew that we were going to do this Zoom, but I felt it was important to just show people what we were, the sort of outpour of emails and things that we were, or influx, I should say, of emails that were coming in, and what we were experiencing. And why not do it firsthand, put a mic on someone and see it right there, and kind of give the viewer, like Marty said, that, behind the curtain view.
Yeah, and I think too, when you talk about just again showing the raw emotion of the stories. I mean, how many people have been on Zoom calls with their family? You can kind of just, you're talking about things that are bothering you or things that are happy, things you missed, and so that I think there was just this universal feeling that this mutual feeling people could understand of having to communicate through Zoom. And I think by going through this kind of group Zoom and capturing that, I wish we were there to console you in some way or help you in some way. And this was the best way we could think to do it. I think kind of came through. It was a little bit unwritten, but I think everyone could relate to the kind of conversations we were having through the computer.
And this was a collaboration. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we approached, if you can believe this, Wisconsin Watch has worked with us on a few stories in the past, mm-hmm. and we kind of approached them with this with an overtime story. I think that's a pretty traditional investigative story. We looked at, the state spent X million dollars on overtime. You get your expert interview and you move on. Mm-hmm. But what I started to see was just the type of people who were putting in monstrous amounts of overtime were the same people who weren't pushing the claims through. So most people at the beginning of the pandemic were told they were held in adjudication, and adjudicators were putting in massive amounts of overtime. So by putting that kind of connection and then bringing in Wisconsin Watch's background of the political history of the unemployment system in the last 10 years, they also had some open records that we traded back and forth with. We were able to kind of make the well-rounded long form pieces on air and in print on our both digital platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And what's next for you guys?
Continuing to cover stories like this and what's come out of this. People just think, oh, well, people are vaccinated, the pandemic's kind of over. It's not. I think that, as Marty mentioned, people are sort of crawling out of this dark hole. And this is something not just financially that has hit people so hard. It's the emotional impact. It's providing the solution stuff, but also still keeping the state accountable, because we're still seeing issues when it comes to overpayments, especially. We have an upcoming story. We're working on that, have interviews set to interview, one woman who says she was paid maybe a few thousand, but the state's saying she was overpaid $16,000. They want the money back. What do you do? What do you do when that happens?
And you think about from an overpayment standpoint, these people waited 8, sometimes 12 months for benefits just to be told they have to pay back some and more of it. It kind of gets to kind of the long-lasting effects of the system we're dealing with here in Wisconsin, and the broken system that for the moment has not been fixed.
And we have to thank our viewers, because they're letting us know what they're experiencing. They're the ones that are saying, this isn't right. Can you look into it for me? Or why is this saying that? I can't get through to anybody. We've relied so much on them, and we're grateful for that, because we wouldn't know, about half of what's going on if they didn't reach out. And I feel like we connected with them so many months ago and established that trust, and we're grateful for that.
Thanks, Kristin and Marty, and congratulations.